Good evening and welcome to the Burbank Police Commission, our regular meeting for August 21st, 2024. We will go ahead and start with our call to order and our roll call.
Commissioner Chapman?
Present.
Chair Coombs?
Present.
Commissioner Ellman?
Present.
Commissioner Feruzin is absent. Commissioner Hakobian?
Present.
Commissioner McKenna?
Present.
Commissioner Wenzel?
Present.
And Mike has agreed to lead us in our flag salute.
Please face the flag and I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So the public comment period will be upcoming in a few minutes. For community members here in person, please complete a speaker's card and hand it to Sherry over here, one of our staff to the right. For members who wish to phone in comments, please call 818-238-3335. That's 818-238-3335. Callers will be placed in a queue until all in-person comments have been received. And we will move on to item C, which is commission announcements and reporting out by commissioners and ad hoc subcommittees. And Ann, are you okay if we start with you and we'll work our way from right to left up here?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I did attend National Night Out, and as usual, it was hot, and the crowds seemed to be a bit diminished at the park. But those who were there, I think, enjoyed themselves. It's always fun to grab a free ice cream. And then we went around to 3 different family locations, and the attendance at those was excellent. I enjoy them because it's an opportunity to talk with your neighbors, your colleagues, your fellow citizens, and to just share what's happening in Burbank. So I look forward to that every year.
Thank you, Ann. Mike, go ahead.
Sure. I also attended National Night Out, and you're right, it was spectacular. It was good to interact with people and find out what they felt and share ideas. And I noticed that there's so much positive feedback coming from citizens about our police department. It was really impressive. I was very, very happy to see that. And I think that's all I have.
Mike, thank you. And I also attended National Night Out. I was able to do the ride along with the chief, City Clerk Kimberly Clark, and my spouse. Thank you for taking us to a number of different spots. It was a good evening. I also wanted to lift up all of the organizations that were out there that evening. It was a great turnout from the community, both at the central site at Johnny Carson Park, and then also at the sites that we were able to stop off at. So just really appreciate the community involvement there. Also, I missed a scoop out of crime by 90 minutes, it turns out. So I showed up a little bit early, ended up having to feed some folks from the Burbank Tournament of Roses ice cream since we got there early, but we were glad that we were able to at least stop by for a little bit. So I'll turn it over to Mike.
I also attended the National Night Out. After being at Johnny Carson Park, I rode with Captain Cremens and Councilwoman Suzette Mullen, and we hit 3 neighborhood parties, and it was great seeing the turnout for those individual parties. Whoever organized them did a fantastic job. On August 12th was the first day of school, and for the 12th and 3 days afterwards, I attended the schools, just watching the opening and the traffic, and it could be described at Thomas Jefferson Elementary as organized chaos. On August 13th, I attended a neighborhood watch meeting in the Vic Roy Park area by Buena Vista. The chief and his command staff was there, and several other officers, and the neighborhood was concerned about the traffic accidents that occurred on Buena Vista and the unhoused population in their neighborhood. On August 17th, I was able to attend the DUI checkpoint with the traffic unit combined with Glendale PD. It was a very successful event, and that's it.
Thank you, Mike. Paul.
I was out of town for a good part of the last month, but I will say that it was nice to follow the back-to-school the National Night Out and Back to School opening week on social media to see the overwhelming positive comments about both our police department and our community, and even some of the concerns about back to school that were posted, because I think all communication is good communication, and it will help us with improving our service. But thank you for all your participation.
Paul, thank you. And Romick, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. On August 10th, I attended Take a Scoop Out of Crime, a wonderful event. I love ice cream. Great to see the community come out and have a wonderful time. And on August 6th, I attended National Night Out. Had a wonderful time there. Got a ride along to through various houses with Ann and Lieutenant Lasacco. Lieutenant Lasacco, thank you wherever you are. Had a great conversation with a lot of community members, and I think one of the last houses we attended saw a really great dialogue between Lieutenant Lasacco and a young gentleman about reckless driving, how he had been doing donuts and they were going back and forth, and it was just a great dialogue, and that kind of leads into discussions that we've been having about the driver safety campaign, just a committee report. We're ready to go for the launch tomorrow, August 22nd, 6 p.m. at Community Chevrolet. Invite the community to come out. There's going to be a lot of wonderful people there, light refreshments, a lot of wonderful guest speakers, so we'd love to see you there. Thank you, everyone.
Romick, thank you for that. So we're going to go ahead and move on to item D, which is oral communications. So what we'll do is, again, for folks that want to call in, that number is 818-238-3335. And we will start with Mr. Joel Schlossman.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Well, I have my sign again. No new tax, vote no on ABC. That's what they're calling this thing. And the school district is putting a bond on November 5th. It's with interest, it's going to be $1.1 billion. And the nexus to this group is when you make things hard on people economically, I feel, and I think it's statistics have confirmed, that you get an increase in crime. And this is the biggest bond in the history of Burbank. And if you dig into it, you'll find out it's not needed. And I won't say anything beyond that because it's not the right place for it. So a few months ago, I saw a video where in the best light, the police department gave a ride to a guy to North Hollywood. And in the worst light, I'm thinking maybe I saw a kidnapping. But the humanity involved in it of speeding away when a fella's laying down on the sidewalk is troubling to me. Now, I don't know if this video was tampered with and speeded up to make it look like they were driving away really fast. I don't know. But there's a cloud over the city right now, and I want that cloud to be cleared. And anytime I hear somebody say, I investigated myself and found no wrongdoing, I always pause. So I hope that the fullness of what happened will come out. And with body cameras and everything's recorded, I want to hear everything, make my own decision. Now, at the last meeting, I talked to you about knucklehead drivers, and I'm worried about the safety of everybody in Burbank. And I suggested let's take these impounded cars and put them out on display publicly. And nobody liked that. So here's another one for you. Let's take our teenagers who are, say, age 16 to 19 or 16 to 21, and if they can go this period of time without a citation or an accident, let's give them a certificate and maybe charge $5 or something, some token amount of money, because it's more valuable when you pay something for something psychologically. And maybe we can bribe some of these young drivers with a certificate of good driving, and maybe they can turn that into their insurance company. Maybe they can proudly hang it on their wall, something like that. So I'm willing to try anything to help this situation. Now, we have a smooth period from time to time, and then we have something horrific happen where we have fatalities. So that's what we're trying to avoid. Thank you so much for your service, and thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Schlossman. Next up, we have Mayor Nick Schultz. Mayor Schultz, welcome.
Get him to double your salary.
If only I had that power, right? All right, Chair Coombs, esteemed commissioners, Police Chief Albany, staff, and everyone else in attendance. I just wanted to come tonight. Oh, and of course, my co-liaison, Councilmember Mullins, who's in the audience. We just wanted to come and say hi this evening. I want to thank all of you for your service. I want to congratulate those of you who will be completing your term as an officer on a successful year, and wish good luck to those who will be appointed to new officer positions later in the course of the meeting tonight. And last but not least, as you all know, we have our joint meeting, your joint meeting with the City Council coming up on September 24th. My only request of all of you would be that if there are, obviously we will go over the OIR report and the findings and recommendations guided by our police department, but if there's anything else that you would like to discuss with the council, I believe tonight would be that night to bring that up for consideration so that it can be on that agenda. So just make sure that you're having good conversations. Thank you all so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilmember Mullins, for being here as well. Thank you both. So we'll go ahead and open up to responses, commission responses to public comments, and let's go ahead and start over here with Romick. Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have any phone calls? There are no phone calls. Sorry about that. Romick, go ahead.
Thank you, everyone who came and spoke. Mr. Schlossman, I really appreciate your input. If I was a reckless driving, 100% agree with you. I think that, good drivers should be commended, either through their insurance companies or just publicly in some way. I know especially at that age, it's really tempting for young people to drive recklessly, but I'm completely with you on that one. And Mayor Schultz, thank you so much for coming in, and Councilmember Mullins for, all your support all throughout the years. You guys have been a guiding light, and really looking forward to the joint meeting.
Paul, go ahead.
Yes, sir. In regard to your comments about last month where you mentioned putting the cars on display, I think we were more concerned about the potential liability of that. But I do think that the city of Burbank Police Department does a wonderful job of putting these vehicles on display on social media when they're on the public roadway and they have no right to assume privacy. And also, I think that's a venue where most kids that age would see it. As far as your thing about commending good driving, I think that's a great, wonderful idea. We need to work with insurance companies. We need to make it something that's valid so that it is, like you said, money talks. And just like having driver's ed on your certificate helps you with your driver's rate, your rate the first year or so, I believe this might be something to look into. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Mike?
I would like to thank both our speakers, and on the subject of the traffic and everything, if the chief wants to talk about some incoming technology that might be helping traffic.
Can I talk about it? Well, at this point, no.
We're still responding. We're still responding, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully, maybe that can be included in your comments at the end. Wrap up, yeah.
And
Okay.
there'll be a conceptual discussion.
Gotcha. Thank you. Couple of different things. First off, thank you all for being here. Mr. Schlossman, thank you for reaching out to me earlier today. I appreciate that as well. And your comments are well heard. Real briefly, I actually we get a good driver discount through our insurance company. So that's the conversation I have with my kids about that. One of them earns it, the other one doesn't, and that's a conversation that we have. So I appreciate your recommendation on that. And there may be processes in place that can already do that. So thank you for that. Also, I share your concerns about how we address homeless services in the city of Burbank, and that's part of the reason we actually have one of the agenda items tonight. So I'm looking forward to exploring that further. And my understanding is that the department will be issuing at some point the results of their investigation. So we'll be able to respond to that when that does come out. As for the, as for Mayor Schultz and Councilmember Mullins, again, thank you both for being here. I have a technical question, actually, because we don't have it agendized to talk about the joint meeting. So I'm wondering if we have the ability to propose issues. It's not agendizing items, but it's proposing issues to bring up with City Council at the September meeting. Logistically, how do we do that?
It has to be agendized, Chair. I don't see any notice to the public regarding that conversation to be had today at this meeting. So at this point, we're limited in what we can do.
Okay. So one of the things that we've done in the past, and Sherry, you were involved in this actually, is if if commission members had concerns or issues that they wanted to be raised, in addition to just providing a review of what we've covered this past year, if there are specific issues that folks want to be raised, I know in the past that's been sent to Sherry, and then Sherry has actually sent that out, so we all have access to it. So that might be another way to prepare in advance for that. We can't really have a discussion about it, but it might be just a dissemination of information.
It technically would still fall under a serial meeting.
Would it?
Because there'd be one commissioner sending information to staff, who then disseminates that same information to all
Okay.
council. So that
Okay.
would not be appropriate.
Okay.
I think, let me think about that, and we may
Thanks.
be able to address that
I
towards the end.
appreciate that,
Yes.
Mayor Schultz. I appreciate you bringing that up as well, so we can try to figure that out a little bit. Yeah.
Couldn't that be future agenda items?
There's a difference. Future agenda items do not allow us to have a deep discussion about the item until it comes to that meeting, because we have to notify the public of what we're going to talk about. So that's where probably the area where we get in the most trouble around the Brown Act, is that sometimes when we're proposing agenda items, we get a little deeper into the conversation than we're supposed to. So that would be a tricky one to do that.
I just, when Mayor Schultz was speaking, that's what I kind of got to,
Yeah.
thought he was alluding to, so.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. Mike?
I just want to remind everybody that at the actual council meeting on the 24th, all commissioners can talk as private citizens during public comment period at the city council if
Correct.
they have anything to bring up.
Correct. And in prior years, we've actually been invited during the commission report out that the commission member, or council meeting, that the commission members have been invited to come up during that time as well. So we'll figure out a way to get there and to be able to at least get the issues on the table so we can explore them in the future. But I really appreciate you bringing that up. I think that is all I've got. So I'll turn it over. Mike, do you have any? Oh, wait. I apologize. I also received an email. I wanted to bring this up because we're supposed to be responding to comments that we received via email. Ms. Shauna Millman reached out to me and looked at a video from, she sent an email to me, and she looked at a video of a prior meeting where Lieutenant Fromer was presenting on traffic safety and something traffic related. She wanted to share that she really appreciated that the video was available, so people are watching the videos after the meeting. She raised a concern that the videos are only in English and there's no subtitles or translation services, and her concern was that they're not we're not necessarily reaching the audience that we could be reaching if it was translated. So I made a commitment to bring that up this evening to make sure that her comments were heard. So thank you for that. Mike?
I don't have much more to add, but I do want to thank Mr. Schlossman and Mr. Mayor for your comments. You have been.
Is your microphone?
You have been our lead spokesman in the past, and I trust that if there are concerns, that you could bring that up at the joint meeting.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And before we move on, not to put you on the spot, Mike, I discovered something in preparation for this meeting. I noticed that if we're not speaking into the microphones, it's really hard to hear on the recording. So I'm going to actually encourage all of us to not only make sure our microphones are on, but we're speaking into them. Okay? Thank you. Ann?
Thank you.
Thank you, of course, Mr. Schlossman, for raising that concern about teenage driving. I agree with Mr. McKenna that I thought our concerns raised the last meeting were more like liability. How can we do that? I still think that should be looked into, because displaying a car speaks volumes, especially if that car might be placed in a spot where teenagers go. Money talks. Working with insurance companies, there's several that probably have a majority influence. I definitely think we should do that, providing money talks. So thank you so much for bringing that back up.
Thank you for all of our public comment folks and for commission responses. We're going to go ahead and move on to item F, which is the approval of minutes from July 17th, 2024.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion from Paul. I have a second from Mike Chapman. All in favor of approving the minutes from the July 17th meeting?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? No opposition? It's unanimous. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and move on to our items of business with item G. Our first item is a presentation, discussion, and recommendations, if applicable, on an update on the 2023 to 2025 strategic plan, and we have Lieutenant Derek Green with us. Good evening, Lieutenant.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you. Derek Green, I am a lieutenant overseeing the Community Outreach and Personnel Services Bureau. I'm also a member of the Strategic Planning Committee, and I've been on that committee since 2017. So I'm here tonight to provide a brief overview on kind of where we are with the strategic plan that we implemented in 2023. I want to preface this by saying that it is a committee, it's a team effort. Once the plan is implemented, the goals and initiatives get delegated out to appropriate staff. So I'm here to provide an overview, but I am not the subject matter expert on some of these, although some do fall under my purview. So I may have to rely on Chief Albanese or his staff to pick me up on anything that I might leave out or a question that I may or may not be able to answer. So with that being said, we'll get into the presentation. So again, this is the most recent iteration of the strategic plan for the Burbank Police Department. The previous ended in 2022. This one took effect 2023. And I'm here to outline basically, first and foremost, the 5 goals that the strategic plan was organized under. First one being optimizing on technology. The second, quality of life improvement. 3 was succession planning. Number 4, improve operational effectiveness and efficiency. And finally, number 5, emergency preparedness and crisis readiness. So the very first one that comes up is perhaps the most significant endeavor for our organization in some probably over a decade, if not more, and that was to replace an end-of-life public safety technology suite. Layman's terms is our computer-aided dispatch and records management system. I'll take you back, as the chief describes it, as a long journey. It certainly has been. So I take you back to the previous strategic plan, which is where we implemented initiatives to establish a working group and begin researching vendors for replacing a system that we were using called Tiburon, which was reaching its end of life and was no longer going to offer support to our department. Aligning with our goal to optimize on technology, we were also in search of a computer-aided dispatch and records management system that would integrate with other technology suites that we planned or had already implemented within the organization. Things like the Axon body-worn camera system, in-car MDT systems, things of that nature. So this was over a $4 million investment. It rolled out the computer-aided dispatch system rolled out on June 24th. Chief Albanese was there with staff essentially to flip the switch over to the new system. And then the records management system was rolled out August 5th. So I worked the first week of the go live date just to experience it myself. I signed up for patrol watch commander duty just so I could see it and become conversant with it. And there was a little bit of a pain penalty just because it was a change from the routine I had known for the past 15, 16 years, but at the end of the day, we are very, very happy with the results. It is a significant achievement for the organization, and the changeover was seamless. So, Chief, is there anything you want to add with regard to the CAD RMS system?
So that's a great overview, but you have to go backwards. So the onboarding of the vendor, the selection of the vendor was a collective organizational effort. Everybody was able to weigh in. We met with a handful of vendors that pitched their product, and actually our employees, staff, had their DNA as far as the selection. So once the selection was made, it was training to get to June 24th. It was significant. And Versaterm, the folks from Versaterm said that this was a lofty goal to do two cutovers in a short period of time. Usually they do them in 6 months. There's a separation of 6 months. But because of the training that was onboarded and collaborated with Versaterm, and we had over a 90% participation rate, it ended up being a complete success. And to Lieutenant Green's point, there's a little modest pain penalties as far as the smalls, but as far as the larges, every day it gets better and better, and we are now have onboarded a very contemporary CAD RMS system, which translates into better service to deliver to our community. And Derek, you can move on the other stuff. You're on it.
Got it, sir. Thank you, Chief. So also under the technology optimization, we wanted to modernize our parking control process. Over the years, staffing challenges didn't just affect sworn personnel, police officers, it affected us organizationally. So shortage of parking control officers with an increased need and expectation from the community for better, more robust parking enforcement. So the city contracted with Laz Parking, a private vendor. In June of 2023, Laz began issuing citations, and as of today, they're responsible for 90% of the parking enforcement in the city. They're currently issuing over 5,000 citations per month, and their estimated revenue in the coming year is going to be roughly $3.5 million to the city. Along with modernizing our parking control process, we also are implementing automated license plate reading technology on parking vehicles. We're segueing to a new parking citation management system, which has been approved. There's an estimated go-live date this coming winter. And we've also transferred responsibility and oversight of the residential parking permit issuance to the Community Development Department. It's a streamlined process now. In fact, they just announced that renewals for the upcoming year can be done online, and that portal will launch in September. Next on the list is to evaluate license plate reading technology. This was also a big one for us. We went into a trial phase for what are referred to as flock cameras. These are fixed position cameras which have the ability to capture license plate data in real time and alert us to things like stolen vehicles, felony want vehicles, things of that nature. It also allows us to input our own license plates of cars that we are currently looking for in connection with crimes. And again, this technology was new to us. We've trial phased it near our retail centers because we were experiencing the retail theft issues. And it also includes access to over 9,000 other flock cameras statewide. So from 3 cameras, because we were so successful, we solved quite a few crimes, apprehended suspects, and returned thousands of dollars in merchandise. We've now secured funding to install an additional 48, and 14 of those have already been installed throughout the city. So that is a big one for us. The best news is these cameras will actually integrate with our upcoming Axon fleet that we're due to get, meaning that the cameras will speak to each other, and the in-car camera system will be compatible and integrated with the flock camera system. Maximizing use of technology. So some of these say completed, some of these say ongoing, because really these initiatives are just always ongoing, right? We are always looking to maximize use of technology. So some of the ways we've done that, first and foremost, we established a complete inventory of all technology systems. That is, many of those are under a non-disclosure agreement, so we cannot disclose that to the public, but it helps us maintain that inventory and assess the technology on an ongoing basis. We've integrated Axon department-wide, so take you back to when we first onboarded the body-worn cameras. That was new technology for us coming off the Puma recorders. We've now expanded Axon department-wide. Our interview rooms, our tasers speak to our cameras, our firearms speak to our cameras. So we have optimized on all things Axon. We have obviously used technology to solve crimes. We've acquired some new drone systems. We have a new primary drone for general missions and patrol or whatnot. We have 2 new indoor drones for SWAT operations. This allows officers that are entering a home not to go in blind and take a look inside before they do. And also our forensic unit has a new drone for crime scene and traffic collision mapping. We have issued biometric wristbands in the jail. So this was an advancement for us. It was new to us, but as of right now, we have 15 wristbands for inmates that are applied during the booking process. It allows jailers in real time to evaluate and monitor an inmate's heart rate, whether it escalates, gets too low, it will alert them, and appropriate medical staff will be notified. We have segued to a contemporary and expedited testing and background process using technology and cloud-based software. This has allowed us to rid ourselves of the antiquated paper systems for background packets and paper trail, as they say, and allowed the applicant to do everything completely online and transmit the information instantly to us. It acts as a method of communication, and it provides better accountability and tracking of all things related to hiring and recruitment. We are transitioning to new in-car MDTs. I think those of you who have seen the new Met Transport vehicle on display, that is equipped with the Tough Book. That is, our patrol fleet will be equipped with those MDTs that can be removed and from the vehicle and used for report writing. And then in September, we've been testing and researching the new TASER 10 conductive energy weapon, and we will be transitioning to the new TASER 10 system. Again, that's an Axon product, advancements in technology. And finally, we continue to build our capabilities through emerging technology. We have established a working group that continuously researches technology. It's led by Detective John Voorhees. We've contracted and secured a contract, I should say, with a company by the name of Virtra, who came out and provided a demonstration on their virtual training platform. That is a grant-funded system. And also, back to Axon, they actually provide a virtual reality platform that's included within our contract. And to wrap it up, we are going to be transitioning to a new police department website very soon. So we're already in we're past the design phase, so I forget what phase we're in now, a lot of technical terms, but we are close to launching the new PD website. It'll be contemporary, it'll have a one-page landing, and it will be integrated under the city's hosting platform. The next section was quality of life improvement. First was to enhance the provision of our mental health services. We have been in the process of expanding our MET staffing and coverage mental health evaluation team. This is also being funded by a federal grant. We've hit some hurdles with the LA County Department of Mental Health as far as securing a licensed clinician. We are exploring other options as of right now. We did hold interviews internally for new MET officers. We do have an established list for that. As soon as we can appropriate the funding and fill that second clinician position, we should be able to expand our MET coverage to all days of the week. As you know from a previous presentation that I provided, we have deployed our specialized transport vehicle for hospitalizations in February of 2024, and that has been very successful. Traffic, we spoke about traffic in the opening, and this is part of my presentation as far as technology goes, but traffic mitigation strategies and improving safety is priority for us. It's always the #1 complaint in our community surveys. So we continue to provide education efforts. Our high school curriculum for 9th graders, our high school driver's education is entering its 4th year. We've put over 3,000 students through the program already. We continue to provide safety talks and run our social media campaigns. And I'll add that we will look into the closed captioning in other languages. I was under the belief that YouTube auto-populated and auto-generated that, but it may only be in English. I'll have to look into it. And we continue grant-funded enforcement efforts. This has become a lot more common for us. We used to hold DUI checkpoints at New Year's and St. Patty's Day. We just held one last week. We've secured a lot more funding through grants that allows us to provide proactive, focused enforcement, DUI saturation patrols, and DUI checkpoints on a regular basis, which is huge. And as far as new technology, the one that Lieutenant Fromer provided me with is, if you've seen them around town, our new speed trailers. They have red and blue lights on the top. There's one out at Victory and Manning right now. When I see it in the distance, I actually think that it's a police car that has somebody stopped, and I can see the people slowing down. But beyond that, it also displays the speed to the drivers, but it, in real time, provides information to a dashboard that our traffic bureau can access to show traffic volume, average speeds, and all kinds of information. So that's an example, Commissioner Ellman, of how we are leveraging technology on the traffic side. Social media is run through our Community Outreach Bureau. We continue to have a robust footprint on social media. We use it for all things recruitment, community outreach, dialogue. We review comments, we respond to comments, we respond to our inbox. It's just another way of us communicating with the public. We are just shy of 100,000 followers overall combined within our 5 or 6 platforms. And we continue to provide crime prevention tips and education. Developing a community video sharing program. So we have onboarded the Axon video sharing capability, which allows a community member, if they are a witness to a crime or they have video that will help us in an investigation, an officer can send them a private link that they can click on and upload whatever evidence they have to our evidence system directly. And we can access that within seconds. Okay, again, this is Axon being implemented department-wide. So that is one of our strategies with video sharing capabilities. We employ the Neighbors app by Ring. So this requires that the community member actually be a customer of Ring and want to download this app and join the community, but it is also connected to the police department. So our detective bureau uses this when there is a crime committed, and it's like a virtual canvas. So instead of going and door knocking each house, they have the ability to send this blast out to whatever radius they want and focus on a specific area, and it automatically will know if a Ring camera was activated during the time and date that you're seeking, and notify that resident that the police are looking for video. The resident then has an opportunity, if they so choose, to upload that video through Ring, and it gets right back to the police department. It doesn't replace canvassing, because we still want to go out since not everybody has Ring, but again, it's a video sharing capability that we have employed. And finally, we are still in the research phase as far as researching a voluntary camera registration program, which is where community members can go onto our website and fill out a form and let us know they have cameras. Captain Kremens implemented a program years ago through the yellow card system where officers were able to track that information. This would just be another way of doing it. We're always trying to increase community engagement through continuous community outreach efforts, developing new innovative ways to engage the community. We just completed our biennial community survey in December of '23, and we've really started to collaborate with some nonprofits in the community. So the Burbank Police Foundation, Leadership Burbank, other organizations that hold events that actually invite us out to those events. We've actually used those as opportunities to piggyback and participate in their events. Now, it's not necessarily a police department event, but it gives us an opportunity through Parks and Rec, the Easter Egg Extravaganza. We're looking for additional opportunities to basically immerse ourselves into the community through other organizations' events. And finally, under life improvement, we look to continually enhance employee wellness and safety. This has become a big topic nationwide in our profession. So we've established the Wellness Committee and Peer Support Team. We provide ongoing training to employees and supervisors, and we've recently sent staff to several conferences where they pick up on our best practices and engage in discussions with other wellness programs across the country. That was the longest one. All right, succession planning. So succession planning is important. Our profession is certainly getting a lot younger, it seems, so we want to ensure that we are providing police officers and civilian employees, non-sworn employees, opportunities for professional development and growth. We do that by strengthening recruitment. We implemented a strategic plan specific to recruitment at the same time that this was established, 2023. We created a new recruitment website. We established a recruitment brand and had several campaigns. We established a recruitment team that was diverse and representative of the demographic breakdown of the city of Burbank. We implemented a continuous testing process. We secured signing bonuses for both new recruits and lateral police officers. As we refer to it, concierge service. We're very big on concierge service. I can't tell you how many applicants have chosen Burbank over a higher paying police agency because of the way they were treated and the way that they were, we followed up and how responsive we were to their questions. That is very, very good to hear. And also we've expedited our hiring process because these days you have to. People are turning out backgrounds in 45 to 60 days. We don't have time to lag. We've enhanced training. We're constantly trying to expand our internal and external training. Captain Kremens held a promotional seminar in 2023. We continue to send personnel to Leadership Burbank every year. This year, Sergeant Jonathan Dugas has been selected to attend. And we encourage other formal leadership training for all ranks, not just command staff rank. We encourage those officers and non-sworn employees to join professional service organizations so they can get involved. And we have some people attending the California Homicide Investigators Association conference as we speak. So we're always encouraging memberships to professional service organizations. We expanded our firing range operations with auxiliary instructors. So these are 4 sworn police officers who supplement Doc Wolfer at the range, and they're able to provide additional instruction. It's especially important right now because we've had so many recent graduates that the span of control for Doc has exceeded what it should be for a classroom instruction. We're able to divide a couple off, split them off, and put them with our auxiliary range instructors. And we have also implemented a new streamlined internal training request process, which just has increased the accountability and expedited the training request process. And our final under succession planning is the implementation of, or the civilianization of the department, and looking for ways to take what was previously done by a sworn police officer and find ways to delegate those responsibilities to a civilian. And we've recently received approval to implement the community service officer position. This is a topic for a completely different presentation, but we will test the waters with 2 interdepartmental promotions here very soon, and these will be community service officers. They'll basically be able to handle a lot of stuff short of engaging a suspect or having arrest or police powers. This is going to be a game changer for us. And also, we civilianized the communications manager position. So that position, which used to be held by the rank of lieutenant, is now a civilian communications manager that oversees our communications center. Operational effectiveness and efficiency. So we always are looking to maintain our performance measures. We do this in a variety of ways. We have an audits and inspections unit that is continuously looking at how we are doing things, generating reports that go to the command staff and chief of police, auditing all facets of the organization. We track and analyze data for each of our performance areas, so things like response times, calls for service, crimes, arrests, traffic statistics, case clearance rates, recruitment, demographics, community outreach, timekeeping. All of this is tracked and analyzed on a regular basis. We are in our 10th year of our CALIA accreditation. We're currently facing our 3-year evaluation this coming fall. So that is another way that we measure our performance through CALIA, coming in and auditing our adherence to those standards. And pursuing industry best practices, some of the ways we do this is through regional training associations and keeping in touch with our neighboring agencies, LA County and even beyond. We're continuously reviewing legal updates and changes in legislation. City Attorney's Office provides quite a bit of training with regard to that. We still contract with Lexipol, which is a company that established standardized policies across the country, and we get a lot of information from them when it comes to legislative changes that affect our policy, which is very important, and Sergeant Turner is responsible for that. And also, we're audited once a year by California Post. So California Post comes in and looks through all of our files and nitpicks and looks for things we missed and identifies not only things we missed, but expects us to fix those errors. And happy to say that our annual audit is we pass with flying colors. Anything that needs to be fixed is usually some type of minor clerical mistake, but for the most part, we're pretty tidy with our post records, which is very important. Obviously, best practices through training and education, and again, we encourage professional associations and affiliations for our members. And finally, this one is my wheelhouse, emergency preparedness and crisis readiness. So I give kudos to Captain Cornels, who's in the audience, who really established our emergency management program back when. And he kind of held this as his baby until he passed the torch to me, and it was something that was new to me, but I accepted the challenge, and it's been eye-opening. So we are very contemporary with our incident management. The chief always says we are going to over-prepare and we're going to prepare early. So we've actually had a working group preparing for the upcoming election season for at least 6 months, if not more now, that meet regularly and have established training plans. We've drafted operations plans. All of this is in place in case something were to happen and we have to hit the button. So this is all done way ahead of time. We do this because we've learned some lessons from other agencies' failures. And but our emergency management system and preparedness and crisis readiness is very robust. We have a designated emergency management coordinator, which is me. We continuously review and update the department's emergency management operations manual. We have hard copies of this book in all patrol cars, in our mobile command posts, in the captain's offices, in the jail, and then we have electronic versions that are accessible 24 hours a day by any member of the organization. I'm constantly updating that manual with anything new. We've created an election folder. It's got a bunch of material in there that they can use in roll call for training. I conduct a quarterly inspection and inventory all of our emergency management equipment and supplies. We provide ongoing training. Again, we've created mobilization and operations templates in advance, so we're not sitting there while we're rolling out trying to type these things up. And again, we provide online access to all things related to crisis readiness, because we never know when an emergency or crisis will occur. So if I'm not there, if Captain Cornels is not there, any sworn employee can look in these folders and figure out what to do, checklists and all. That was a lot of information. So again, an overview on our strategic plan. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
So Lieutenant Green, first I want to thank you for a comprehensive presentation. I also want to lift up, and I know that we probably have a number of different questions, I also want to lift up, we've been kicking this down the road for a while, this agenda item, and we finally got it agendized for today. And there's some detail that we didn't have, but the majority of the information that we received is information that we've been receiving regularly from the department in various different presentations. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank the department for that, and just want to acknowledge that. I've got a couple questions and thoughts, but I want to open it up to the commissioners for any questions that you have.
I apologize for asking for numbers, but can you give us the results of the DUI checkpoint?
This past week, yeah, it was. Yes, this one was unique in that it was in conjunction with Glendale, so we can't put out that message until we've worked with their PIO, and we were hoping that would go out today, but it did not, correct?
And while you're looking that up, I just wanted to lift up, I think we need to be a little careful because the agenda item is reporting out on the 23 to 2025 strategic plan. So if we dive deep into any specific subject, that could probably cause us some problems. So I just wanted to lift that. Great question, and I wanted to lift that up.
So tell me if I'm out of line on this one then. Can you tell?
I'll defer to Mr. Joe Hall. Okay.
Thank you.
So there were 9 traffic stops made. 1 person was put through the standardized field sobriety tests. There were no DUI arrests. 2 citations issued for moving violations, 2 equipment violations, and 1 vehicle was impounded for having their registration expire more than 6 months. And again, the goal of these checkpoints is actually not to make arrests. It's the announcement prior to prevent the DUIs. In the
Phenomenally
first place.
successful. Again, back to the numbers. You mentioned the revenue from parking under the current system. What was it prior?
Administrator Garzone may have that number at the top of her head, but I doubt it.
You know what? I don't want to guess. I really don't want to guess. So we can get back to you on that as far as the last 3 years. Okay, because it would just be a guess.
And last but not least, on emergency preparedness, to show my age, at the time, the fire department, Rich Bannon, was the fire department with the Y2K, and I was part of evacuation plan and things like that, disaster preparedness with the city on if anything had happened on that night, and it was incredibly thorough. The people of Burbank need to know that they was very well kept, and to the point of things that I learned in the Burbank Fire Training Center, I used years later in Iraq. So it was that thorough and that complete, and I think that your presentation hopefully gives confidence to the people of Burbank that that's continuing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions that commissioners have?
Well, unfortunately, it's about the parking. Does the parking control company pay for itself? In other words, the tickets?
The cost of onboarding the parking
Right.
control versus the revenue, yes.
Okay.
Yes, right. Yes. Yes.
I just wanted to ask
Anything
that
money I
question.
have to turn to
I also-
Police Administrator Garzone to make sure.
Some of the, I noticed on the screen that some of them said, some of the items mentioned grant funded. Does that mean the others are internally funded?
We secure grants as much as we can. The majority of what we pay for when it comes to the items contained in the strategic plan are grant funded. If there is a grant to be applied for, we will seek that opportunity.
Thank you.
Romit, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Coombs. Lieutenant Green, thank you so much for that comprehensive presentation. In regards to the subject of technology, is AI a conversation you guys were having in regards to implementation? Is there anything Anything happening out
We-
there?
We've started to, and we've also started to see some training specific to AI and law enforcement, artificial intelligence in law enforcement. Early stages, infancy, but yeah, it's a conversation we're starting to have.
Okay, thank you so much. And also for, just a comment on the speed trailers, they're fantastic. I've been living on Santa Anita and Glen Oaks for the last 4 years. And before the implementation, I mean, you have drivers driving extremely fast. And even also there's like a speedometer, I believe, or like a tracking where on from Glen Oaks, where you have Alameda and between Alameda and Providence, I think there's like, I don't know what you call it. It's like one of those speed tracking systems, but if you go over 35, it starts flashing red. Prior to that, I remember just cars bulleting up that street at 60, 70 miles an hour. But since that's been implemented, I've seen a huge reduction in speed, especially, and you're absolutely right. So when I'm going into Glen Oaks from Alameda, and when I see in the distance that speed trailer, I automatically assume it's a police officer. So I think that's doing a great job as well.
It's good to hear.
Yeah.
Mike, go ahead.
In the secession planning, is there a mention anything about volunteer officers? And I bring that up from the National Night Out. I met a few people that are sworn volunteer officers on our department, which I did not know before.
The reserve
That was
police
interesting.
officers. Yeah, you and I had that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a crew of reserve police officers who are used in a variety of different ways. We have some that do administrative work for us. Retired Captain Arminder Menjian is one example. He has been assigned to our range to completely contemporize our record-keeping system up there because, again, it was antiquated and we are optimizing on technology, and he took the lead on that, and he's done a fantastic job. We have other officers who do go out and patrol. We have officers that like to just do community events. So we do leverage our reserve officer program quite often.
Perhaps we might include something in the future in one of our meetings about that.
About reserve officers. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Sure.
Mike, go ahead.
Well, you've made a tremendous investment in technology. What's the lifespan of the flock cameras?
I don't know for sure. I know that so far, since we've implemented them, we have not had one issue as far as power goes or signal. That would be a question for Lieutenant Mark Stoll. He is the system administrator for the flock cameras, unless somebody else in the room has an answer to that question.
Only a geek like me would
And
answer.
he gave me a cheater, but that wasn't included, so.
Also, when you invest in technology, you're stuck with maintenance contracts, which are very expensive, a lot of times just as expensive as the hardware. If a lot of the equipment was acquired by grant money, does grant money cover any of the maintenance contracts?
It would just depend on the vendor and the agreement made. Axon has been very good about upgrading our equipment on a regular basis. I think we're maybe every 5 years on the cameras. Chief,
That's budgeted. So a valid question as far as when we onboard equipment that is underwritten by a grant, then once we onboard that equipment and we know that we're going to want to continue with the equipment as far as replacement and or software, we'll incorporate it in our budget. We'll depreciate that item. So 5 years down the road is that we can replace that item.
Thank you.
I think you'd mentioned that you and Detective Voorhees are both ongoing members of the strategic planning work group committee.
there are quite a few of us. Yeah,
Okay.
probably a dozen or more.
I'm wondering, two questions. One is, actually a few questions with this. When the 2023 to 2025 plan, when did the development start on that plan?
Prior to.
About
Yeah.
how
So we're
far?
probably, any day now, we're going to start a meeting to develop the 2025 to 27.
Perfect.
Conceptually. Yeah.
So Do you recall, again, the range of topics that are addressed in the plan, I really appreciate that because those are presentations that have been made to the commission in the past. Does it work the other way? Are there any issues that have been brought up by the commission that then that you're aware of that then impact the development of the strategic plan?
I think just conversations that we have in here weigh in and have an impact on some of the strategies and goals and initiatives that we implement. Off the top of my head, I can't think of one specific topic that was discussed here that then became a goal or initiative within the strategic plan.
Okay. Is there any civilian participation in
Yes.
the development of the strategic plan?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm wondering if there's an interest from the commission or from the department to possibly have commissioners involved in future development of future strategic plans.
Be a discussion to have.
Something to put out there, something for us to consider in terms of our involvement and everything and what that would entail. And those are conversations that could probably be had on the side, but I just wanted to bring that up. Let's see, address that. Are there any issues that have come up, and I don't want to dive too deep into it, but has there been any pushback with the license recognition technology? Has there been any pushback from the public about the use of that technology?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Awesome. Those are all the questions I have. I just really appreciate how thorough this report was, and also, again, want to lift up how I see it integrated with a lot of the work that we've been collectively talking about over the past few years.
Great.
So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Any other questions from the commissioners? All right, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I appreciate
Good
it.
night.
All right, next item up is item G2, presentation, discussion, and recommendations, if applicable, regarding Burbank Police Department Policy 464 regarding homeless persons. And this is a presentation by Sergeant Stephen Turner. Sergeant Turner, welcome back. And I know that you had just talked about some of this recently, but we'll go a little bit further than what you'd done last time. But welcome back.
Got it. Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. Good evening, chair. Get started right here. All right, good evening. Like I said, my name is Sergeant Stephen Turner. I'm with Professional Standards as well as the Public Information Officer for the department. I want to first make clear the entire Burbank Police Department policy manual is available online. You can access it. It's a living document. You can access it via our website. Again, our website's getting upgraded to be a little easier to navigate in here in the near future. It's a living document in the sense that we keep on top, along with our partners at Lexipol, keep on top with legislative changes, case law, and identified best practices. Case in point, Mr. Kopian, to your question about AI, we're in the process of authoring a new AI policy right now. So trying to stay current with technology. This, however, will be an overview of our homeless policy, policy number 464. The purpose of this policy is to ensure that personnel understand the needs and the rights of our homeless community, to establish procedures, and to help guide officers during contacts with homeless, whether consensual or for law enforcement purposes. It is our policy to provide law enforcement services to all members of the community while protecting their rights, dignity, and private property, including those of the homeless. Homelessness is not a crime, and we will not use that solely as a purpose to detain or stop an individual. It is written in our policy that the chief of police will designate a member of this department to act as the homeless liaison officer. I will tell you that Burbank PD previously had a quality of life officer, which in May of 2012 developed into our current, what we have of our MET team. There's a lot of mental health associated with our homeless population, so that's why our mental health team is the lead contact for this population. We work hand in hand along with our bureau as well. The mental health team, we've had presentations from them before, is our current liaison, and a list of some of the things they have to do. They maintain a list of community assistance programs, which we'll go into, continue to liaison with those programs, including the VA, maintain a list of encampments, high utilizers that we have, as they work towards one encampment or one individual. As soon as they get that person connected to services or that incident resolved, they move on to the next one. And so it's ongoing and continuous. Provide oversight in the event that we have to clean up an encampment. We're out there with the assistance of Public Works, whoever it may be, and they provide oversight ensuring that their rights are protected. also develop, conduct training with our department, which they do. Our patrol officers are encouraged to contact homeless for purpose of rendering aid or support, seeing if they're in need. Also providing those kind of resources. Reaching out to our mental health team if in the event this is, again, beginning to be somebody who we determine as a high utilizer, ongoing incident generator. Officers should provide homeless persons with resources to assistance information whenever reasonably apparent. Again, offering Street Plus, which I personally worked out there with them on in years past. Again, on Front Street, we have the safe storage bins, mobile showers, and as well as Burbank Temporary Center and many, many more. Nothing in this policy is meant to dissuade an officer from taking reasonable enforcement action. However, when encountering a homeless person who has committed a nonviolent misdemeanor, a continued freedom is not likely to result in a continuation of offense. Officers are encouraged to consider long-term solutions. Again, working with various programs, working with our mental health team, working with the city, and looking past that, getting to long-term solutions, the best resolution for these incidents. Some other considerations when dealing with our homeless population, for example, for a successful investigation and prosecution, when our homeless population could be the victim or a witness of a crime. Officers should consider some of the following points when handling it. You know, obviously document alternate contact information. Do they have friends or family in the area that we can contact in the event we need to get a hold of them? P.O. boxes and such. Areas where they frequent. You know, there may be a certain geographical area that they're in consistently. So if we need to reach out to them and continue to work with them, that we have that ability. Again, as well as other homeless resources, victim witness resources also when appropriate, right? There's a lot of resources if you're to be the victim of a crime. And then again, we have in past advised transportation for investigation-related matters such as court appearances or medical exams. Some of the resources, again, this is not a comprehensive list, but these are some of our main resources. Street Plus, our Burbank 311 app, they're still growing that. It's a great app where you could have certain resources on that. Go straight to the burbankca.gov/homelessness, and there's a lot of resources on there. And again, our Burbank Temporary Aid Center, Safe Storage. You know, they have mobile showers are available every Tuesday and Thursday at the safe storage location. However, they have to sign up ahead of time to have that available to them. We have additional policy as it pertains to storing property. Written within this policy, we have specific storage bins at our police station in the event that we need to store it for safekeeping. We also, again, to keep hammering the point home on Front Street. That concludes an overview of our policy, Policy 464, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Sergeant Turner. And if it's okay, I'd asked for this item to be brought into the agenda for tonight, so if it's okay, I'll jump in. And again, I appreciate the presentation that you did in May and today. And what I'm hoping to do is I'm hoping to get into a discussion with you, with the department, and with the commissioners, a little bit about the policy related to letter of the law versus spirit of the law. I do want to lift up, we do not have the authority to get into anything that involves an investigation by the department. But I also, with what Mr. Schlossman said earlier, it is related to that. So this is really specifically focused on how policy is implemented. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the presentation. I'm wondering if we can explore a little bit about, again, the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. I really appreciate what the department's doing, and I can give a specific example of a ride-along that I was on with Met probably about a year and a half ago. There was a call out to it was to Olive Park. There was an individual who was unhoused that was causing some disruption, and they were in part of the park area, and there was another city employee that had called the Met team out, and the staff officer Kyles, not detective yet, right, Kyles? Detective Kyles, great. Sorry about that. Detective Kyles was leading the team and really approached the situation with a lot of compassion. which was very different than the staff member that had called them out. There was, and even actually was different from another resource that's in the city that's designed to go out to these situations. And so we had a situation where the folks that had called out the department to respond were frankly pretty hostile. But it was Detective Kiles and her team were really compassionate. I don't think it was just because I was on the ride along. She genuinely is. And so I'm wondering from a policy and a training perspective, how do we teach that? How do you teach that? Because the policy's great. There's words like encouraged, consider, that are in there that are really helping move people towards a different way of interacting and engaging in what could be a conflictual situation or a difficult situation, and they're responding with compassion. But how do we teach that? How does that get taught in the department when we provide these interventions? I just want to caveat that and again, the department doesn't have to respond to this, is that it looks like there was a lot of compassion in the incident that had come up previously with the department. We don't get a chance to see that. We're looking forward to seeing the results of that report. But how does the department teach the compassion when these presentations or when these policies are being implemented, and how does the department reinforce that compassion?
So it's taught, first and foremost, it's written into our policy verbatim. I mean, it talks about consider long-term solutions as opposed to, especially on a lower level, misdemeanor, nuisance type of crime. You approach those situations with compassion. We teach that. It's taught in their academy, and it's taught through our department too. And it's taught through self-improvement. There's tons of classes out there that our officers seek their own training on. There's classes that our Met Unit has for our department annually. And again, staying current with current trends and what works best, and keeping officer safety in mind and working with all of that, but always keeping an open heart and always trying to approach these incidents with compassion. And it doesn't just go to the homeless. It goes to, as officers, we have the benefit of using spirit of the law, letter of the law in every interaction that we have. So it's hard to have a broad stroke of when that happens. To your point, you had that experience on a ride along, and sometimes it's just a feeling. And again, younger officers may approach a situation differently than somebody who's a little more seasoned, right? So again, that's through peer training, through department training, through self-taught, through a little bit of everything, and policy, and that's why we have it written in our policy that way as well.
I appreciate that. Would it be possible to share maybe a little bit anecdotally what that interaction might be like between a training officer and a new officer, if the new officer is expressing an attitude other than what the department would want? How often does that get talked about amongst training officers, and what are some strategies that they use to address that?
Again, anecdotally, if you're in a situation, whether it be a training officer or a senior officer or sergeant out on the scene, and you have officers addressing homeless or whatever it is, and you can see they may be, for lack of a better term, a little over their skis, and you can see the situation can be handled different. Professionally, you're able to intervene and handle that situation, and then offline, away from that, once that situation's resolved, you have whether it be a small one-on-one debrief, a group debrief. We have an opportunity in roll call to go over these kind of situations, and we often use roll call as an example of that. You have any kind of incident the next day in roll call, or that following week in roll call that's rehashed, because you could always do better. You can go to any incident, and 100,000 times you could always do it better. And so, to your point, if you see it, it's incumbent upon that senior officer, that sergeant, that field training officer to kind of intervene, and and it's a bit of, while respecting that younger officer too, not embarrassing them in front of everything. And that way, intervening, getting that situation under control, and then maybe debriefing that officer a little bit later.
I appreciate
Let me
that.
tag on. So these are the expectations that we have defined. So if you're a FTO, field training officer, and you have a trainee, I mean, you're starting brand new. You've had all this training, but no real life application. So when you're in the car together, that's what you should be talking about. Is that I would ask my trainee, is that how do you think you did on that? And if you had to do over, what would you do differently? Because I asked myself, you managed yourself first, then you manage the incident. But it takes time. You look at a litigator, and their first 30 days in court, and they're litigating misdemeanors or felonies. Fast forward 5 years, and it's going to be a different person.
Right.
So and it's also the department's position on how we manage folks that are in distress, that are in crisis, that are homeless. In your park illustration, I'm going to believe that the park personnel are weary of this individual, and they may have been dealing with them earlier or all day long or in the past. So you get Detective Kyles out there, who's a tenured police officer who is also a negotiator, and her wheelhouse is dealing with folks that are in crisis mental health disorders. So you could see that path, and then you have that's your livelihood, so you're going to have a different grading scale than someone else have. So it's part of the journey as far as developing as a police officer. And you bump up to sergeant, same, detective, and by the time you get to the chief position, you look like me. So, I mean, you're just worn out.
Yeah. No, experienced, not just worn out, but experienced.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I'll agree with the worn out part, but experienced is also a big piece of that, and I know that experience is a big piece of that. I don't know, because I know this policy hasn't been updated since 2014. Is this one of the policies that comes out of the Lexipol system?
It does. Our Lexipol is responsible. There's hundreds of agencies that subscribe to Lexipol.
Right.
They have a team of attorneys, a team of individuals that oversee best practices in law enforcement nationally and locally, and they put out updates. So when we adopted this back, we were members of Lexipol about 15 years ago, adopted into our policy, for lack of a better term, the management system, the Power DMS system. And constantly there's updates. There's legislative updates that we have to take, different coding or whatever it is. There's brand new stuff that we gotta encounter, and AI and genealogical DNA is one of the other ones that we're looking into now. And so they'll provide updates. We ourselves too will see a need. We'll get I'll get directive from my lieutenant, captain, and say, see a need. Our AED, that was a brand new policy when we put the AEDs out in the cars. That was a brand new policy. But it's constant. It's a lot of eyes. That's why I say it's a living, breathing document.
Right.
And that way, when it's on the website, you're seeing the latest.
And with the spirit versus letter of the law, it's the culture that we're really also wanting to make sure that we change and impact as well.
And I could tell you, spirit versus letter of the law. The first time I heard that, it was in the academy. I mean, that's preached to you in the various police academies. And again, it comes, like the chief said, it comes with experience, more and more experience.
Yeah, and for clarification, this policy isn't a law; it's a policy of the department. But in terms of how officers embrace it and apply it, that's the piece that I'm most concerned about and interested in, to make sure that they're applying these in a compassionate way. The policy includes that. It intends to include that. It's the transfer of knowledge of how do we make sure that the officers are actually embracing it. So I appreciate that.
Of course.
Thank you. Other questions? Paul, go ahead.
I've addressed the same issue both with Sergeant Turner and other officers on ride-alongs, because I live in a rather eclectic area of Burbank between the bike path and businesses and things of that nature. And I have had de-escalation training, but what I've observed with Burbank police officers that I think was paramount, even beyond my own training, was patience. It's kind of like if you're in control of the situation, you can sort of let the people have their say. They feel like they've been heard. The patience, the de-escalation is just admirable. And so it's really, really something to observe. And basically, I think one of the things that Sergeant Turner and I talked about was just observing both the conduct of the people and the conduct of your senior officer. You're going to learn how to handle the situation. And last but not least, I think it should also be noted that Detective Giles is completing her education at USC. See, I'm not even going to make a nasty comment about USC. And I just think that what an admirable thing that while she's a full-time officer, she's pursuing that to make herself even more valuable to our community. So the inroads to this are phenomenal. And I actually had someone in my neighborhood that I sent pictures to Sergeant Turner, and I hope all worked out well, but we haven't seen them recently. But very nice people. They deserve to be treated well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments that folks want to make? Mike, go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation.
Yes, sir.
I do have a couple of questions. One, James mentioned policy is not law, but policy is more than just a suggestion. how does it affect the department and legally affect the officers?
It can't, I mean, officers are guided by our policy. There's a lot of shalls you should do, and there's a lot of shoulds you should do within our policy, and officers are held accountable if they violate policy. So again, that comes from a whole nother, if it's discovered that an officer had violated department policy, it could generate an internal affairs investigation, and then so forth and so on. And it's always referred to the policy, and the officers they know any of the updates that go out, they're required to sign it. I also manage how many people, if we put a new policy out for everyone to sign, I give you 2 weeks to sign it, to read it, comprehend it, and I see who's read it, who's checked off on it. And so it's a lot of checks and balances.
You mentioned among some of the organizations that you work with, Street Plus.
Yes.
Could you just very briefly expand a little bit more on what Street Plus does?
Street Plus was contracted through our city as another resource, as another community resource that we could lean on. I personally have used them. We had a contact with an individual who was homeless. Again, not criminal, didn't meet the criteria for a 5150. Reached out to Street Plus, and at that time they were able to provide them services, at least put them in contact with somebody. Some of the questions that the individual had. They're village ambassadors in our downtown area, and then just again another one of numerous resources we have at our fingertips.
Is Street Plus like an outside nonprofit?
Yes.
And
I don't know if they're nonprofit. Yeah, they're not nonprofit, but it's an outside agency.
And one other thing, in our homeless policy, is there any discussion about transporting somebody from one point to another point? For an example, if someone needed, psychological, or if they needed have other needs like just physical needs, getting clothes washed or something like that. Do our police ever move people from one point to another point, and is that part of the policy?
So there's a separate policy as far as transportation of individuals. So that'd be a separate discussion. As far as, again, going back to spirit of the law, letter of the law, and looking for ongoing and long-term care, I can tell you we also have, within reason, we can do transportations like that. They're few and far between. It's a gray area. It's a case-by-case basis, but we do have policy pertaining to transportation of individuals.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, Mike, I appreciate you bringing that up, and this is not for the department to respond to, but I know that it's tricky because in my work, we've dealt with transporting individuals, and if they're not on an involuntary hold, they're not arrested. If you move somebody from point A to point B, and then they say, I didn't want to go there, technically it's kidnapping. And so that's a problem. It's a liability issue that a number of different organizations have to deal with. Mike, go ahead.
I'd like to refer back to your May presentation.
Mm-hmm.
I think you used a number that in the last homeless count, it was 129 individuals in Burbank?
I'd have to refer back to my last presentation. Yeah, 2023 count, I believe it was 129, yes.
Okay. And I think in that presentation, you said the calls for service involving the homeless, there were thefts, drunken public, trespassing, vandalism, drug violations, assaults. Chairman Combs talked about compassion. Talk to me about compassion for the victims.
Well, again, when we talk about compassion, we talk about lower level trespassing type of crimes versus, and you talk about assault and vandalism.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously there's a victim associated with those kind of crimes. So again, it's case by case. It's not.
I guess, are there services for the victims?
Yes, there's plenty of victim services available, including through us, and we can make those arrangements depending on the seriousness of the crime, whether it's something through, the district attorney's office, through our department, through nonprofit organizations. There's various other organizations for victims' rights.
Okay, when we all attended the Viceroy Park neighborhood watch meeting,
Yes.
I remember a lady saying that she was concerned about the unhoused people around Pacific, and that's the railroad tracks?
Yes, I think she was specifically talking about Van Owen, yes.
Yeah. It seems like it has an effect on that neighborhood.
It does. I'd venture to say that it has effect on any neighborhood that it's in. And I could tell you, Burbank uniquely, especially with the help of our Met team, goes and tries to create a resolution for every one of those situations. And sometimes they take a long time, right? Sometimes, I hate to say it, individuals are very resistant to change or to assistance. You know, so it's a combination, whether it's Met, or it's Department of Mental Health, whether it's a nonprofit organization, whether, you know, any myriad of circumstances that's unique to that individual.
Okay, thank you very much.
You got it.
So if we can go there for a moment as well, because in reviewing policy 464, there's nothing in it talks about that homeless individuals can be, it actually says it might be contact whether consensual or for enforcement purposes. So I don't think there's anything in this policy about giving people who are unhoused a pass, is there?
No, again, the only thing in the policy, it do say, however, under our patrol engagement, again, reiterating that officers are encouraged to consider long-term solutions, right? When encountering a homeless person who has committed a nonviolent misdemeanor, again, talking about some of the crimes you talked about, a nonviolent misdemeanor, and continued freedom is not likely to result in continuation of the offense or breach of the peace, right? So officers are encouraged to consider long-term solutions to the problems that may relate to the homeless, such as shelter referrals, counseling, in lieu of physical arrest. So again, I can't, every situation's gray, every situation comes with tenure, how that's addressed, you know, and of course, if there's victims there and to the significance of the crime that we're talking about.
And that nonviolent misdemeanor piece could really affect any of us in the room even. So it doesn't matter whether they're homeless or not. Any of us maybe have those considerations taken in the situation as to whether we're detained or not. Okay.
Absolutely. And that's a lot of our resolutions, especially on the lower end, are that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I remember last year we experienced problems with a certain individual, and it went through the whole process of all the organizations that could help this individual. But this person finally went into the criminal justice system. And it wasn't until they went to LA County Jail and was put in the mental unit and were put back on their drugs, was there really a conclusion to this? Because it just went on and on.
Is there a question? Sorry, is there a question?
There's no question. It's just my comment that sometimes it gets to that point, and it takes that type of thing to resolve it.
Understand.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
I was going to say, you know, the question, how do you teach compassion? Man, that just really hit me because I don't think you can teach compassion. I think compassion is like, how were you raised? Where did you grow up? How did you grow up? What have you experienced? Have you been a victim? What have you seen? Can you teach compassion? Yes, but through experience and everything. And I do think compassion, a lot of citizens need to also understand what is compassion and what is the police department essentially up against.
I think when you take this oath and put on this badge, I think there's a level of compassion that you're going to do this for a career.
Absolutely.
So I think you have to have that fabric inside of you in order to be a successful
right.
Police officer to begin with.
Right. Also, you mentioned Street Plus and that if somebody wants to take a shower on one of those 2 days, they have to go sign up in advance.
So that's separate from Street Plus. That's the storage area over on Front Street.
Oh, okay.
And they have to, I think it's associated with the Salvation Army, but they have to go there and they have to sign up in advance in order to have it.
So if they have to go there in advance to sign up, are there efforts that are made to like go hang out there and talk to those people, to use the opportunity of them having to go and sign up as an opportunity to let people know about, hey, there's other services and we
again,
can help you with this.
And that's a community effort, whether through law enforcement contact, through contacts at BTAC, through contact through programs such as Street Plus, that's part of when we talk about providing services to our homeless population, that's some of the education that we provide to them.
Okay. And that's compassion.
It's compassion.
Okay.
Mike, go ahead.
When you spoke earlier about there's a large gray area, and that a lot of the actions taken by the officer is on a case-by-case situation. The policies are there not only for the way that they are interacting with the public, but I would hope that they also have some protections for our officers. James mentioned something earlier about difficulties that can come up with transporting or something. Is there a need for more, and the policies that we have currently are developed in 2014?
Yeah, this policy is, yeah.
Is there a need for additional policy? Would that having more guidelines be helpful? Or would that be a problem because it would be locking people in and you can't move to do things?
That's the balance. Do you want your policy to be too constrictive, or do you want to have some room with it? And that's why that's why it's sectioned off in certain sections. There's a couple of you shall do this, and then you're encouraged to do that. And we're constantly looking at our policies. Well, I'm sure we'll look at our policies again specific to this one in the near future. But we're constantly looking at it. We're constantly getting updates again from Lexipol, from Sacramento, or wherever the case may be. And then again, there's a lot. We have such an array of policies that they go hand in hand. It's just not a one policy incident. Usually an incident is a 6 policy incident, right? Because you're dealing with, like in your example, you're dealing with a homeless policy and you're dealing with a transportation policy and whatever else, conduct or whatever it may be.
And actually, here's an example of where things might change a little bit in the near future as well. When back in May, you'd indicated that 931 calls were at that point in time. That was 2024 and counting. 931 calls that involved mental health in the community, and that only 17 involuntary holds. Of those 931, how many of those might have involved estimate? How many might have involved intoxication?
I'd have to look at, let me see what I have. I got new statistics from one of our analysts today. Again, often they come as a disturbance, and whether it's result in an arrest to like somebody publicly intoxicated or under the influence, or if that's the case, or in some cases taken as for a hold to a hospital for a 5150 hold. I can get you that information. I don't have that with me right now.
We'll probably end up discussing it more later on. The reason I'm bringing it up, because Mike, with what you brought up, SB 43 is going to be affecting every jurisdiction in the state, actually. Los Angeles County kind of kicked it down the road a little bit, and what it's going to do is it's going to expand who can be placed on an involuntary hold, and someone who is intoxicated or chronically intoxicated will be able to place on hold. The predicament is just like what we have now. If we detain somebody for being homeless, which we won't detain them just for being homeless, but if we did, we'd need to have some place to take them, for them to go. Just like if we arrested somebody. Obviously, the jail system is not the appropriate place for that. SB 43 is actually going to expand that, where they will be, just like we can place somebody on an involuntary hold right now, we'll be able to place somebody on a hold for substance or alcohol chronic intoxication, and that's going to be problematic because we're going to need to figure out where we're going to take them. That may actually impact the review of this policy, because it'll probably have to take into consideration, given the numbers that, again, we can look them up later on, but given the numbers that we've got, it may come into play there.
Absolutely.
So, Mike, go ahead.
Just a question. I think about 3 weeks ago, Governor Newsom mentioned the removal of homeless encampments. And it was basically cities. The direction was to cities. any discussion taking place in Burbank?
So it was a reversal of City of Grants Pass versus Johnson. It was a Supreme Court decision that came down that authorized, in a nutshell, authorized city law enforcement to take criminal action in the event when dealing specifically with encampments. I can assure you our direction right now is still with a compassion heart. Maybe you could utilize it if they're resistive to, of ongoing services. You could hang it over their head or whatever the case is going to be. But as of right now, our policy stays the same, that we're going to reach out with compassion. We're going to reach out with our services that are available to us. And we're fortunate, we are in County of Los Angeles. There's tons of services available. And our team, again, going back to them, giving them the credit, they're very successful.
Thank you.
Great. Roman, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Coombs. Thank you, Sergeant Turner. So I know we've been talking about compassion. I believe that my definition would be for someone to not wanting to have someone not feel the pain that they're going through in their scenario and want to give them comfort. And I think that's just a fundamental human feeling that I know we were talking about. Can that be trained? I mean, we all feel pain on the fundamental level as human beings. So with that, is there any training or psychological training or classes that you guys have access to that come down and say, hey, there's training on homelessness and how to understand the psychology of homelessness or things like that?
I've attended training myself. So like I said, there's an individual training that our officers are great at putting it, they'll seek out and look for training. There's training that our department puts on, again, through Detective Kyles and our MET team, and they'll put on training and what they see. Again, debriefing certain incidents will birth new training too. And so it's wide open. And it's encouraged. It's a tip of the spear kind of topic right now, not only here in the city of Burbank, but law enforcement nationwide. So there's through a lot of the publications, online publications, there's constant articles. So there's all various levels of training for that.
Sure. Okay. That's wonderful. And the only other thing I have is just a comment, just to, I know Commissioner McKenna and Commissioner Coombs mentioned a story, a personal story. I actually witnessed Officer Anthony Carduche right in front of the Burbank Chamber of Commerce. He was so fantastic. There was a homeless person homeless people just come in the Burbank Chamber of Commerce. There's this place where they can just sit down and rest or sometimes sleep. But there was somebody there shooting a needle. And I immediately called the police, and I know that some of the employees were weary, and you can't see inside, but we witnessed the entire thing. But just a level of sensitivity towards the individual and the compassion that was just by the officers there, just definitely commendable. Shows a lot of experience, a lot of maturity. So just thank you for that.
Thank you. Incredible officers we have.
Appreciate that. Any other comments or questions? Really appreciate you bringing this back to us and being able to have the further conversation. So thank you so much.
You got it.
So next up, we have item G3, reporting out and recommendations, if applicable, by the School Safety Ad Hoc Subcommittee. Who wants to start?
Well, a couple of things. One, I know we had talked about on our own choosing a school and seeing how first day traffic went. I went to Burroughs, and the first day of school, it is a zoo. You've got new parents dropping off new scared children, but it was not as bad as I have seen in previous years. I don't know if parents caught on to maybe dropping their student off 2 or 3 blocks away and having them walk. Don't know. But there were 2 motorcycle officers present, and I know that on the second day, that was a deterrent, because you could see drivers, looking, and the officers were right at the intersection of Clark and Lamer. So parents have to go by, and definitely that affected traffic, speed, dropping kids off in the middle of the road, dropping kids off double parked. So it definitely helped. Presence worked. I did not see any tickets given out.
Okay. About the subcommittee, the work of the subcommittee, where were we at with that?
That work of the subcommittee.
Oh, yeah, it definitely is the work of the subcommittee.
The pamphlet that we had hoped would be, one of the things that we were hoping for with the committee is that the driving safety pamphlet that you were instrumental with would be passed out to students as they got their parking permit. Students apply, they have to meet certain criteria, GPA, behavior, attendance, et cetera, to get a parking permit on campus at the two high schools. And that didn't happen. So one of the new jobs of the committee is to chase that down. Where did it go awry?
We'll get there.
And we will.
All right.
And just to add
Thank
to
you.
that, I know that we were even told that it would be shared to the BUSD newsletter and to, I think, a variety of schools. So I don't know if we ever saw that come to light. So we're definitely going to pursue that.
Thank you. Paul?
And our last meeting with the superintendent, which was over a month ago, and one of the things that we did address was extending an offer to every principal, especially since there's so many new principals. And he was very open to that, and I don't know what the follow-up has been on that, but he did assure us that they would extend an offer, that we, as the police commission and the police department, would work with them if they had any specific concerns. And with the hope that if we can make a difference, have an impact on a single site, that the other sites will jump on the bandwagon and say it's been successful, then we want to try it.
Thank you.
Is anybody aware, did any of the elementary schools go back to that valet? I didn't go to any.
The
but-
school, that happened last year in the spring when we first time mentioned to the superintendent that that nobody had brought the valet back since COVID, and more than half the principals had changed since COVID. He put out an email, and within 2 weeks, the majority of the schools were back into the pre-COVID
Fantastic.
program. So now the question is, or the opportunity we have, is to improve on that. But it does show that there is a reaction from the school staff when we reach out.
Thank you for that. From previous discussions in preparation for this agenda item today, I think the goal was to sunset this ad hoc subcommittee this evening. I just want to confirm that and see where we're at, because I've heard a couple of things I heard, and that's when you and I were making eye contact. A couple of things I heard about ongoing plans. Technically, we'd agreed that we were going to sunset it now, but there's nothing that prohibits any of us individually from continuing in some of those conversations. But I just wanted to know, for the subcommittee, is there any additional work or reporting out of the subcommittee that needs to happen at this point?
I think on an official basis, if you wanted to sunset it, that would be appropriate. I do think that there's going to be follow-up, which we as commissioners would do, which without the umbrella of a subcommittee.
Yeah.
But, and that would be fine. But, because I think the purpose of the subcommittee was met in the fact that we've communicated with the school, with the administration, and that they know we're here. And then just as members of the commission, we hope to be liaisons with the police department.
So just like Mike attending the neighborhood watch meeting a few weeks ago, there's nothing that prevents any of us from having those conversations. And I actually encourage us to be involved and be able to be liaisons to the community to be able to do that. So there's nothing that would prevent you from doing that. We just want to make sure that we're sunsetting the actual formal work of the committee at this point.
I will make a motion to sunset the committee.
I don't think that we don't have to do that, because I think we'd agreed that we were doing that. But I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And I want to commend you all, because this is the relationships you established with the superintendent, the relationships you've established with some of the schools, the information that you've brought back, the crossover between some of the school safety issues and some of the traffic safety issues we've talked about, and the communication with the department about these issues have all been fantastic. And I don't want that to be understated in any way. Ann?
And that meeting is on Saturday at 6 p.m., the school safety pamphlet meeting?
Oh, it's tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at Community Chevrolet.
Thursday night.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Anything else related to, any questions for the school safety ad hoc subcommittee? All right. I want to thank you all for doing this work. If there's an issue that comes up in the future, this is where we can use that process to agendize and to focus on specific tasks or specific projects as well. So thank you.
Well, and I also think that by taking that umbrella away, it opens it up to all 7 members of the commission to feel like they are part of this, and that they're more than welcome to be part of the solution.
Right. And also this will be a good reminder as well with that, we just got shiny new copies of the Brown Act. So just as a reminder that we can have any 3 of us participating in any of those meetings, if there's any kind of a community meeting or whatnot, where you're allowed to congregate and have those conversations. What we can't do, what's the daisy chaining, the email chaining thing that we were talking about before? There was a term for it that you used earlier.
Daisy chain.
Was it a daisy
Yes.
chain? In terms of, so what we can't do is we can't create a committee of the whole by replying all.
Serial communication.
Serial communication. We can't do that either, but up to three of us can still get together. And that's okay to have those conversations. You're allowed to socialize. All right. Thank you for that. With that, we're going to go ahead and move on to item number 4, which is the annual election for commission officers. And so I always forget how we do this. Do we vote individually on each position, or do we vote as like a slate or as a set of commissioned officers?
Chair can decide how we want to do that.
Great.
It's kind of up to the commission.
So what I'm going to recommend then to go through this is that we go through, I'm going to recommend a nomination process, nomination and acceptance for each item, starting with chair, vice chair, secretary, and then we can take a vote on that slate. Does that sound reasonable? All right, so we'll go ahead and open up for nominations for chair. Oh, Mike, go ahead. You had a question?
I don't like the term slate.
Okay.
It's individuals who are, interested in the position, not a grouping of
Oh,
people
no,
who are
no.
interested.
Okay, to clarify, we're going to take, my recommendation is that we take nominations for chair. And the nomination gets accepted, then we take nominations for vice chair. That has to be accepted, and then we take nominations for secretary, that's accepted, and then we vote on the whole set of officers. How's that?
Yeah, but I just want to make sure that the 3 people are not members of a slate.
No. Thank you for that. All right, so we'll open it up for nominations for chair.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I'd like to nominate yourself, though I understand it's unprecedented. We've done so many things under your leadership. You seem very enthused by it, and I would hope that you would do it for one more year. So I'd like to make the nomination.
I appreciate that.
I second that nomination. I think that, if I'm allowed to add on, I think that the area of crises, if you will, the area of our engagement and where we have to put our energy is right up your alley. That's why I second this nomination.
I appreciate that. Mike?
I would like to nominate myself.
Okay.
I don't believe in an autocracy, and I think that we previously had a system before many of you came onto this commission where it was a rotational thing, and everybody had the opportunity to be a leader of it. And by having the same person who's done a wonderful job, that denies opportunity to others. And I think in all fairness, it should be, everybody should be given the opportunity, because that's being inclusive.
Paul?
I had this discussion with our chair after our last meeting, and I agree with Mike 100%. The discussion I had with James at the end of the last meeting was, I have learned a lot from you, and I think the best way to demonstrate that we've learned it and that we've been mentored is by people coming in and moving forward. And I think that our city has a rotational leadership system. Nobody at this table's vote is more important than anyone else's. One is just an organizational role. And like the city mayor rotates every year, I agree with Mike. I think it should be a rotating position. I was on a previous commission that had a fairly entrenched chairman that I expressed the same views, and we ended up putting other people in that position. One of them went on to become a city council member. So I agree with Mike, and it is in no way, shape, or form to shortchange James. I just think it's a rotational leadership opportunity. And as the vice chair, I think it's appropriate.
Romick, did you want to weigh in?
I would say that absolutely, definitely, absolutely want to weigh in, and it's kind of interesting because I feel like I can go either direction, and either make this or break this. I mean, from what I've seen for the last year, James has been an incredible leader. Like his understanding of the material and the subject matter and rebuttals and the questions that he asks are absolutely phenomenal. I think that the level of organization and direction he's given the commission has been fantastic. And as much as I agree that in leadership roles, there should be other people that should come in and take those positions because it can, change the tone of the commission or maybe add or improve. It can improve the commission or it could not. I believe that my personal opinion is whatever's best for the commission. And the only reason why I say that is because I've seen the commission evolve in the last 3 years, and James has been phenomenal at doing that. And it seems like, if I was to make a choice, I think that I would love to see you for another year. But then again, I proposed that last year, so maybe I just want to stay neutral in that conversation, if that's okay.
So we've got 2 nominations. I've been
I
nominated.
haven't been second.
I'll
No,
second Mike's nomination.
we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah,
We were
I'm
just,
just saying.
so we were just accepting nominations right now. There's no seconding yet. We still have to vote on that.
She was second.
And yeah, and we, that was a little bit premature, but that's okay. So I appreciate that. I'll go ahead and accept the nomination that's been made to me. Mike, you made the nomination for yourself. Is it safe to assume that you'll accept that nomination? Okay, so,
I think we're all ready.
all right. So are there any other nominations for chair?
I'll definitely accept that nominating you for chair, James. So definitely, yeah.
So we've got 2 nominations for chair. Because we won't be able to, because we have, yeah, I got you. So contested is probably the right language to use here. So we'll go ahead and have to take a vote on specifically for chair, and then we'll move on to vice chair. So if we can have do we want to do a roll call or show of hands? Do a roll call for, and what we'll do, and what we're doing is we're making a decision between Mike and myself.
Should I just call one person and then vote, or?
Yeah, I think you just call by name, by nomination, and then we do a show of hands if that's what you want to do.
Okay.
Probably easier.
Okay. So we'll do that then. So I guess we'll start with me, I guess. Show of hands in favor of me continuing as chair. 2, 3, 4. Show of hands in favor of Mike becoming chair. 2. Okay. So 4-2. I guess that takes care of that. All right. Moving on to vice chair. Let's go ahead and open it up for nominations.
I would nominate Romick for vice chair.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll take a vote on that. Show of hands in favor of Romick becoming, actually, we'll just do each one. Show of hands in favor of Romick becoming vice chair.
Did you accept the nomination?
Oh, yeah, Romick,
Just
did
to
you
make
accept
sure.
the nomination?
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Sherry.
Just to make sure.
All right, all in favor of Romick being vice chair? Show of hands. You can
Yeah,
vote for yourself. Any opposition? All right, we'll go ahead and thank you, Romick, for accepting that position. And the third one is for secretary. So let's go ahead and open up for nominations for secretary.
I nominate Mr. Elman for
Okay.
secretary.
Declined.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Romick?
Then I would like to nominate Ann for secretary.
Can I gracefully decline? I think I'm still in the, may I gracefully decline? I think I'm in the learning stages, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the secretary
Okay.
would do anyway.
And you can gracefully, ungracefully, or even interpretive dance decline if you wanted to, so
Well,
that's okay.
That was always my goal, to be a, no, never mind.
All right.
I gracefully decline. I feel I have a lot more to learn,
Okay,
and I look forward to that, but I thank you.
okay. I'd like to go ahead and nominate Paul as secretary.
I'd be flattered.
Okay, so Paul's accepted that nomination?
I will second that.
Okay, we're not there yet, but
I'm excited.
this is exciting. Any other nominations for secretary? All right, so all those in favor of Paul being secretary, show of hands, aye. Any opposition? No opposition? Thank you, Paul. All right, so I appreciate that. So now we are on to item H, which is the introduction of agenda items for future meetings. I jumped right over it. I'm so sorry about that. We're going on to G5. This is general announcements. I'm in trouble now. General announcements by the police chief, brief announcements regarding upcoming events and/or items of note related to the police department. Chief, the floor is yours.
Good evening. So I'll be brief on the announcements, and then I have an item of note that Commissioner Elman brought up. So we do have a recruit graduation August 29th. We have Kiwanis Fun Day, which will be Saturday, September 14th at Burbank High School, 10 o'clock. Police Department will have static displays, SWAT, K-9, Bearcat. It's been discussed a couple times this evening, but to remind folks that on Tuesday, September 24th at 6, we'll have the joint session of the Police Commission and the City Council. The Burbank Masonic Lodge is is having First Responders Night on September 19th. So our Officer of the Year, non-sworn Employee of the Year will be recognized. We will have the Pink Cruiser unveiling. Sergeant Turner will get out that to us once it's done, so that'll be for October for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We have the Drug Take Back event on October 26th. So we have some promotions that take effect at the end of the month that are notable. We are promoting Officer Hensley to Sergeant. We're promoting Sergeant Beckety to Lieutenant. We are promoting Lieutenant Lasacco to Captain. He will remain in detectives till the end of November. And in November, we will promote Detective French to Sergeant, Sergeant Jamal Childs to Lieutenant, and Lieutenant Stoll to Captain, and he will oversee the Patrol Bureau. A couple of captains will move around. Captain Cornelius will go to the admin side, and Captain Lasacco will go to support services. So items of note related to the police department. When we had our community meeting last week, I shared with the community members that were concerned about the speeding on Buena Vista of a product that is being used by law enforcement. So we had met with the vendor. When I say we, myself and Police Administrator Garzon, and we are going to meet with the Assistant City Manager first week of September to have an expanded conversation about this conceptual model. It's going to require buy-in from the community of Burbank. The number one complaint that I get via email, telephonically, is going to be traffic related. It's either traffic related or parking related. Those are the number one complaints. And for speed, it's going to be on Buena Vista, Hollywood Way, Alameda, and Glen Oaks. So the city wants to calm the traffic. We have educational campaigns, we have enforcement, we've looked at engineering, and we may have to look at something more provocative. So the vendor, and this is an item of note, so tell me when I start to drift here, is transportable cameras, speed cameras, that will issue citations. And this is where the heartburn will be for the community, is whether they want speed reduction or not, because it has been effective in other communities. I've had personal experience in another state where it has been very effective. So there may be an opportunity to beta test on Hollywood Way in Buena Vista to see if there's success as far as reducing speed accidents. and the impact it would have in the community. So that was what was proffered at that community meeting. It was embraced at that meeting, but they hadn't been on the receiving end of a electronic speeding ticket. So it depends on how serious we're going to get about slowing folks down. And it's worked in other communities, so that's what we're looking at conceptually. So having said that, a lot of good stuff going on right now. I want to thank Lieutenant Green, did an outstanding job as far as our strategic plan. And our mantra has been to pursue technology, not chase technology. We want to be shoulder to shoulder with technology. And Sergeant Turner did a great job as far as our policies, and just understand that it's just very fluid, whether it's legislation, case law, is that policy is going to change. So having said that, any questions? Yes.
On the OIR report, is that available now for the commissioners?
It is not. It is not. And I'll tell you why. We just got it.
Okay.
Okay. So there's a pecking order. It's a caste system. We get it first, and then there's point counterpoint. Then the city attorney will get it. Then the city attorney, police department, and the OIR will meet. Then city council, police commissioner will get it before the 24th.
Right.
This is since 2011. That's how it's been.
Okay. It would, I understand the process. It's always nice to have a few days to look at it. It's a good read.
It's voluminous.
Yep.
It's voluminous. So it'll be more than a few days. I promise you. The goal is to try to get it 2 weeks to you before police commission, and BPOA is also part of that too.
Good, thank you.
Am I getting corrected?
Let me add something.
Uh-oh.
No, I'm not correcting you, I'm elaborating. So the report will be distributed to both city council and the commissioners the Thursday before the Tuesday meeting. So the meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September 24th. The agenda and the report will be posted on Thursday, September 19th. So you'll receive it on Thursday, you'll have the whole weekend to review, and then we'll meet on Tuesday. Just elaborating.
So I stand corrected. Thank you, but I stand corrected. So, and also the BPOA will have an opportunity to see it. So you'll get a week before the commission, right? A week, full week? 5 days?
5 days.
5 days. 5 days.
Fantastic.
5 days.
All
Okay.
right.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Any other questions, Chief? Paul, go ahead.
First of all, Chief, thank you so much for mentioning the Family Fun Day. But I would like to add, and everybody seems to forget this, we have 50 bicycle helmets that will be at the police booth. Rather than have a separate table this year, it's going to be
You give away.
with the police. And I will tell you, I think a lot of people know my feelings on police and children's relationships and contact in our community. And there was nothing more heartwarming than a picture of the chief putting a bicycle helmet on a young lady at last year's event. And that's what we're going to do this year. We're going to have officers help fit these. We have a lot of helmets that are for very small children that did not get handed out last year. So we look forward to people there and walking away with safety equipment.
Good deal. Thank you. Thank you.
Did we mention about tomorrow night? Did I miss?
Several times, but I'll mention it again.
Okay.
Tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at Community Chevrolet. Drive safe, save lives. The mayor will be there. Councilmember Mullins will be there. The entire command staff will be there. The Boys and Girls Club will be there. And who else am I missing?
The Armenian Youth Center, the Homanetment,
Yeah.
they're going to be there as well.
And all the
there's
public
others.
are welcome.
And, thank you. And public is encouraged to attend, and especially if you have a young driver in your family, that's the target audience. So, we'll see you tomorrow night.
Fantastic.
We good?
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. All right. My apologies for rushing earlier. We are moving into item H, which is introduction of agenda items for future meetings. We are scheduled for the joint meeting in September with the City Council, and we've already discussed that earlier. So typically what ends up happening is I will be providing a report on the year's activities, and typically, traditionally, commissioners have been asked to share anything that they would like to share as well, and then we'll all be having that discussion around the OIR report. We already have for October, we have 2 items agendized. One is the discussion on any feedback, or actually, these are agendized, and discussion on any feedback or recommendations from the Joint City Council and Police Commission meeting in September. And then we also have agendized already presentation discussion of the top 3 crime hotspots from crimemapping.com for 2023. Those are set and ready to go. November, we will be having the discussion to develop a mission vision statement that goes beyond the city charter. That was based on an ad hoc committee that had met previously, and that information will be provided there. And then so a future item, but we don't have it on the agenda right now, is the presentation discussion of the city's 2035 general plan and how it relates to the BPD. So what we need to do is we need to see if there are any additional agenda items for the October meeting that we would like to add. We have 2 right now. And then are there any additional agenda items in general that we'd like to add? And that future item, do we want to assign that to a specific meeting?
And Chair Coombs, if I may, for
Sure.
the November agenda item, the topic of going beyond the city charter is
Yep.
a bit concerning. I know I reviewed the meeting that we had discussed this issue, which was, I think, back in April.
Sure.
There was some discussion about going beyond the charter, but then it was clarified to address or incorporate trainings that the commissioners
Yes.
received in evaluating the vision and seeing what else the commission can do to meet those trainings that you did receive. So I think that needs to be clarified, that it's actually not going to go beyond the city charter, but
Okay.
actually to evaluate the vision statement in light of the training that the commissioners received.
Okay. And to clarify, that training was both on development of a shared mission vision goal and also looking at, for lack of a better description, anti-racism practices and government policy. Mike, go ahead.
I think that training was almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I think before we start discussing it, we can kind of use a little bit of a review on the training. It's not, since it is 2 years ago, I mean, people's memories aren't all the same. So I think it'd be nice to discuss the training that took place and then see if we have a path forward. Because
Okay.
even, methods and procedures
Right.
change in 2 years.
So are you recommending a discussion before the discussion?
A review.
A review, okay.
A review of the training that took place 2 years ago.
Okay. So we might want to modify then. Let's see if we can walk through this real quick. Let's go ahead and have you make a motion to modify the November agenda item.
I
And
move that we
capture-
modify the November item for our mission statement by preceding it with a review of the previous training that took place.
I think we could do that based off of our notes from the training. It's the only solution I think we'd have, because that's what I was operating off of, is my notes from the trainings. Right. So it would be kind of catching Ann up a little bit as well. So I like the idea of reviewing the previous training and then and developing a mission vision statement because the city charter, that's not a mission and vision statement, so we can probably just take out the beyond the city charter part of that item. So it would be a review of the previous trainings on mission vision statement development and anti-racism practices and government policy, and actually and discussion and development of a mission vision statement based on that material. I put a lot of extra words in there, but I'm trying to limit it so it's not going beyond the city charter.
Right.
But it's also capturing the content from those trainings.
I think the topic is still within the police commission, and to evaluate what the
Right.
police commission can do to help or evaluate the Burbank Police Department. But the question is, from my understanding, this was a subcommittee, ad hoc subcommittee that was created, and
Yeah, there was an ad hoc subcommittee. We did meet. We've got some notes from that meeting,
Okay.
and my intent was to present basically my own notes in a document that we can then discuss from that meeting.
that'd be perfect.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. And that's for November. So do we need to officially vote on modifying that agenda item to clarify it, or can we just move forward with the clarification that we've got?
I think we can move forward with the clarification.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Any other agenda items that folks want to add for October or November? And what do we want to do with that future item?
I think we need to move forward with the future item because we're not meeting in December, so November goes to January.
Right.
So we need to be aware.
I think there was a question about the department's preparation for that item as well. So we want to make sure that because a presentation on the city's 2035 general plan, is the department prepared to do that in November?
We are not.
Okay.
And as I suggested, can we put it on January?
Absolutely.
That's
Okay. So Paul's making a motion to move that item to put that item on the January agenda. Do we have a
Paul
second?
didn't even know that.
Do we have a second? Michael second. Mike Elman second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Mike Elman seconded, yeah. All unanimous, all in favor. So that's going to go in January. Okay, any other agenda items that we want to add for any of these meetings?
I'd like to get a feeling from the other commission members. Would we like to spend a little more time on the OIR report beyond the joint meeting, where we can ask more questions a little bit differently than at the joint meeting?
Would that be, so we've got the first item that's already scheduled for October. It's discussion on any feedback or recommendations from the Joint City Council Police Commission meeting in September. Can we include OIR? Because that was part of the meeting in September.
Sure, that should be fine.
Okay.
We can.
So we can prepare to do that in October.
A little bit of history. Years ago, prior to the joint meeting, a presentation was made to our group a month before. Which Mike Janako used to come.
That wasn't previous to.
It always is. It's always going to be post presentation to city council. OIR is contracted by the city attorney's office, and they will present to city attorney CM and then to city council, then to the police commission if we did it back then.
Maybe I was mistaken. Did Mike, when he made his presentations to the police commission, was that after the joint meeting with the city council?
Yeah, or after the OIR report was presented to city council.
Can I clarify? So he came to the commission to talk about, at the very beginning, about your responsibilities and as oversight for the department. So he talked about what you should be looking for. So it wasn't specific to the OIR report. It was about your oversight of the department. And then there were recommendations that they make, and there were some follow-up on the recommendations if we followed up on those recommendations for a couple of meetings following the OIR report. It wasn't with Michael Janaka, though. He only came one specific time to talk about your oversight of the commission and what your responsibilities and roles could be.
I remember that. I don't know the exact date, but I remember that.
Yeah, several years ago.
Yeah.
Well, this is long before this group.
Oh, no, he came and did a presentation for us as well on what our responsibility was as a civilian oversight group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when they first started.
Might have
when
been.
they first started out. Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. All right, so
Thank you.
Any other agenda items to schedule? Because that one's going to be included, so we're going to be good there. Any other agenda items? Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Our next meeting is going to be on Tuesday, September 24th, 2024, 6 p.m. It'll be here in City Council chambers, and that'll be the Joint City Council Police Commission meeting. Thank you, everyone.